They concern whether future generations inherit a history expansive enough to include all who helped build this republic. The answer should never be fewer stories. The answer should always be fuller stories to tell the whole truth. For memory is not a scarce resource. Truth is not diminished by inclusion. Indeed, the opposite is true. Every time America has widened its understanding of itself, it has become more faithful to its founding ideals. Consider the long procession of those who enlarged the American promise, those who challenged slavery, those who defended the Union, those who fought for the women's right to vote, those who demanded women's suffrage, those who organized workers, those who secured civil rights, those who expanded voting rights, those who insisted that democracy belongs to every citizen rather than a privileged few. Each generation inherited an imperfect nation. Each generation left behind a better one. That is the true American tradition. Not perfection, but progress. Not complacency, but correction. Not silence, but an honest conversation. Not fear, but an abiding faith. At 250 years, America does not celebrate because every promise has been fulfilled. America celebrates because generation after generation refused to surrender those promises. The American story has always advanced because citizens possessed enough patriotism to criticize injustice and enough hope to repair it. Love of country has never required blindness. It has required courage. It has required the truth to confront those things that are uncomfortable, the courage to confess, the courage to correct, the courage to continue. Mr. Speaker, I yield back, and a happy 250th anniversary. May God bless the United States.
The gentleman's time has expired. The chair recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Gallagher, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise to pay tribute to two of my constituents who tragically lost their lives in a senseless act of gun violence at a public library in Chico, in the heart of my district. Libraries are places of learning and community, spaces where families, children, and neighbors come together. But last week, that sense of safety was shattered by an unimaginable violence. I want to take this time to honor Jacob Hull and Robert Johnson and offer my deepest condolences to the families and friends and community who are devastated and forever changed by this tragedy. Jacob, or Cody as he was known, had taken someone he cared for deeply, a close friend's 8-year-old daughter, with him for a visit to the library. He gave his life that day to protect hers by shielding her from the attacker that day in an act of extraordinary courage and selflessness. And because of his actions, she was able to escape, flee to safety, and reunite with her family. He is a hero. Robert spent 30 years as a resident of Orland, California, where he spent a career in the ag industry before retiring. He was beloved by his family, who fondly referred to him as Uncle Robert. Robert found great joy in spending time at that Chico Library, which his family described as his favorite place in the world. It was a place of comfort, of learning, and peace where he could indulge in his passion for reading, the passion that remained with him throughout his life. Robert was a quiet strength. Both Robert and Jacob were beloved members of the greater Chico and Butte County community, whose absence will be deeply felt, and it leaves a void which cannot be replaced. Members of the Chico community have already banded together to raise money and support for the devastated families of both victims. 2 memorial funds for Cody and Robert have been started by the North Valley Community Foundation, and donations can be made on the North Valley Community Foundation's website at www.nvcf.org. I also want to extend my gratitude to the librarians, the bystanders, and the first responders who selflessly rushed to the scene to provide aid during this horrific crime. I commend Chief Aldridge and his amazing officers at the Chico Police Department who responded to this incident within 4 minutes. Their excellent training was on full display, and they quickly apprehended the suspect. Their heroism undoubtedly saved lives that day. We are grateful to you and we salute you, the thin blue line, which protects our community each and every day. No words will ease the deep pain and suffering our community is feeling, but I ask that my colleagues join me in honoring the memories of Jacob Hull and Robert Johnson, and in praying for justice and healing for their families and our community in the difficult weeks and months ahead. Mr. Speaker, a new fiscal year starts off in California, and we have a fiscal bust that could cost us vital wildfire funding. The cap and tax system doesn't raise enough money this year, and under a terrible deal struck between Gavin Newsom and a select group of politicians, money meant for wildfire prevention may be lost because it was put in last place under this deal, and high-speed rail, a project that hasn't built a single mile of track, was put in first place, along with legislative projects for this select group of legislators. $125 million for transit passes, $25 million for a UC Climate Research Center. One curious one, $85 million of our taxpayer funding to go to some entity chosen by the legislature to explore climate innovation and solutions for the future. Where is it going? No one really knows. But what we do know is that wildfire funding could very well be slashed under this terrible deal. And even worse, our CAL FIRE firefighters, their budget could be slashed if we do not reach a deal that comes to putting wildfire prevention and wildfire suppression first in our state. I rise to call out this terrible and atrocious deal, and I demand that my former colleagues in the state legislature put wildfire first, put victims who have been through so much horror over these many years in California, wildfire after wildfire, put them first by making sure that that funding is there. And we can do our jobs here in the U.S. Congress as well by passing our Fix Our Forests Act, which is now on the Senate side. But we need to make sure we get that through so that we can increase the pace and scale of removing dangerous fuels. Mr. Speaker, I thank you for this time, and I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentlelady from North Dakota, Ms. Fedorchak, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As our nation celebrates America's 250th birthday, North Dakota has the extraordinary privilege of marking this milestone in a truly historic way. Tomorrow, on July 1st, we open the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library in the Badlands of western North Dakota. It's a place that forever shaped one of America's greatest presidents. First, I want to recognize the countless people whose vision, generosity, and determination made this remarkable library possible. They are too numerous to mention each individually, but to the TR Presidential Library Foundation Board, its staff, donors, volunteers, community leaders, Secretary Doug Burgum, Robbie Lauf, Ed O'Keefe, and so many more, thank you. Because of your efforts, future generations will come to North Dakota to experience the place that shaped Theodore Roosevelt.